So do they see all four of us or just one, the person speaking?
So I can have it all four, or I can do it each individual person speaking. It's totally up to what you guys prefer the recording to look like, basically.
I'm
Are we
open.
gonna see the people?
No, so we won't be able to see the people on.
And are they gonna ask you the questions and then you're gonna ask us the questions, or you're gonna have them ask the questions?
So you guys should be able to see the questions they ask. There's a little pop-up that'll come up if someone asks like a Q&A, but I probably won't open that up till the end. And usually I'll ask the question to you guys just so you don't have to like bother with going back and forth. Okay, perfect. So I don't know why it's not going on Facebook, so at least it will be on here. This new tech world, I swear, I thought I had it figured out. I just don't. So sorry, I don't. Okay, perfect.
The work in progress for us all, so no worries.
I think everyone's pretty forgiving.
I know. I'm like, sorry, I can't get on like this, my Wi-Fi. Like it's this constant struggle. But all right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Life has been really crazy, as we were all just talking about. COVID has been very crazy, and we've all had to stay inside quite a bit. And I think that there's a lot of elements that people have turned to really help them cope with COVID and help them make it through this quarantine process. And that's where kind of cannabis has come into play, at least for me, and I know a lot of other people. So today we're going to be speaking about that, and we have a really amazing, phenomenal panel today. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, and we'll go ahead and get started after that. Do you want to go first, Gina?
Oh, sure. So hi, I'm Gina Wenzel. I'm with Plant Media Project, a newly formed women-owned plant medicine marketing agency. And we also have a podcast called The Vine that we have been just spreading information about cannabis and plant medicine.
Doctor, would you like to go?
Sure. I'm Karen Moe. I'm a family physician. I work for UC Davis here in Davis, California. And from early stages on, I got interested in doing more integrative Eastern alternative types of medicine, because although Western medicine does a great job with surgery and broken bones and yay antibiotics, there's lots of things like addiction and mental illness and things like that that I've discovered we're not doing a good job, and chronic pain is probably a big one as well, as we all know about. So I really got, I mean, I've always believed in cannabis as a medicine, and as I started to be more open to it, people started to be more open to me, which is actually terrifying because people don't tell their doctors. But it's really cool. So I've just opened it up, and I am spreading the word, I like to say, from the inside out.
I need you to be my doctor. I wish I was back in Saks.
I'm like, okay.
Like, I'm coming in. Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Noska, and I'm account executive for Proof. And Proof's a small family-owned and operated, fully compliant cannabis company based out of Santa Rosa. And Proof's all about compassionate pricing, so all can afford the great medicine. And I found Proof a little over 2 years ago, and it just changed my life. I'm just such a healthier and better person with cannabis. And I'm just honored to be here tonight with just such an amazing panel. So thank you for having me.
No, of course. And since I made you go last because I wanted to thank Proof for sponsoring this event. I actually use their face serum.
I love it.
Like,
me too.
So thank you guys again. I really appreciate it. So I wanted to start off by just asking, you know, how have you guys used cannabis during COVID to really cope with the effects of being quarantined and kind of the stay-at-home orders? Anyone can go.
So I'll go first. I'd say with this pandemic, it's really caused me to lean in on my cannabis use. Cannabis has really helped me with like isolation right now, as we were kind of discussing earlier. Like everything's just really changed. You know, things that we would normally celebrate, there's, you know, like nowhere to really go to celebrate. So, you know, things are just really different. And, you know, it's helped me turn down the current sensory overload right now that I'm feeling from the news and just the constant changes going on in our lives on the daily. it's just a lot to take in. And I find cannabis is really calming my mind and body for sleep at night. And, all of us are kind of losing a little bit of sleep with all the stress going on. So yeah, cannabis has been really helpful for the mental and physical effects from this pandemic for myself.
No, absolutely. I agree. Gina?
Yeah,
How
well,
about you?
I'll tell you, I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we are a medical state only. And I went into the pandemic just not sure where my life was going to go. I mean, I'm an event producer. I do concerts and festivals and large scale events, and everything became canceled. And what do I do? What am I going to do for money? How am I going to support my family? What is this going to look like for me? I have always, turned to cannabis, but never was able to really be a part of the program. I always thought in many cases that, my anxiety wasn't severe enough and that maybe I shouldn't be a part of the program because I didn't suffer as much as other people. And that was just a part of my own just issues that I have. And I just, I was working already in the industry and supporting other patients and being a part of it, and said, you know what, I think that I need to look into this and figure out how I can become a patient myself. So I contacted a physician that I was friendly with, that I knew was friendly with cannabis. And they changed the rules in Pennsylvania where you were able to do telemedicine. So I was able to talk to a physician, very much like how we're speaking right now, and just talk about, my experience, and realizing from this doctor that I have always suffered and self-medicated with cannabis, and now was in a position to get the diagnosis that I needed to get the recommendation so that I could finally go into a dispensary and get the medicine that I needed. And, I have a 7-year-old, and she is home with me. I'm remote teaching first grade, and I'm very much somebody that was traveling the country and working and doing all these things. So the fact that I'm home, eventless, and teaching first grade, I think that cannabis has come to my aid in a miraculous way. And I am very grateful for the fact that anxiety was added as a medical condition last year so that I was able to get it compliantly in my state.
Definitely gives you more patience than I've used it for.
So should I jump in?
Yeah.
Definitely my personal use, which was actually very, very low. So most people are like, oh, you're into this. And I'm not really a significant user, or really never was. I am one of the people that is a little bit more THC sensitive and too sensitive. But I got turned on to many other cannabinoids, primarily CBD, but also CBN for sleep, and really exploring all the different nuances of the different types. And to me, it's science, and it's so fascinating just to see all the different ways that it works and how it works differently in different people. And I really have to say that it's opened my mind to the big thing of people, a lot of people have used it. And so like what Gina was saying is a lot of people have self-medicated for a long time for a lot of different things, as we do with other non-beneficial medications or substances like alcohol and things like that. So I do know at the beginning of the pandemic, alcohol was a significant problem. I do feel that I've shifted a lot of people, like, how about you try this instead, with a lot less negative side effects. And I do know for my patients, that's been huge. And especially in the older population, it's been really important. And the great thing I just want to add is, in this older population, they don't have the stigma. It's interesting. The like 80, 70, 80, 90-year-olds, they weren't part of the Nancy Reagan craziness, and so they're like, yeah, sign me up. They're like, that was great stuff back in my day. So yeah, get me more. And guiding them with different uses, primarily for anxiety, agitation, because in nursing homes, they're really locked in because it gets in a nursing home and it spreads through like wildflower, crazy. So they're locked in their rooms. They can't see their families except through like windows. They're technologically challenged. I mean, so there's so many different layers with the older population. And this has been a God. It's been so good.
No, I think I definitely agree with all of that. I know that I saw a lot of people turning to alcohol, which was really unfortunate. A lot of house parties I've noticed were happening. And I was like, oh, I'm good, you know? But okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for sharing that. I'm super excited to get started. So my first question is for Jennifer. How has cannabis helped you with your ailments, and how did you find the right strain and dosage to help you work through that?
So I'm not sure if you were talking to me. I lost some voice. I can't really hear everything. Just give me a thumbs up if you're.
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing everyone else a little bit for all of a sudden.
Okay,
Were you asking-
be quiet. I can talk louder.
What, did you ask a question? I couldn't hear anything. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so sorry. How has cannabis helped you with your ailments, and how did you find the right strain and dosage? But before that, maybe you could explain a little bit of your experience and what you went through, and give the audience kind of an idea of how you.
So I'm still losing all my audio. It's going really in and out. But I heard you ask about my ailments, so I can answer that. But I didn't hear what you were asking before that.
Just maybe how the right strain you found, like the dosage that kind of helped you with it, just like cannabis-based like medicine.
Yeah. So, okay. So cannabis has really helped me manage my ailments in just so many different ways. So I deal with a lot of fibro fog, and I know, and that's fibromyalgia. My brain will just get a little foggy. I can't, always function. And I noticed when I started using cannabis, more CBD, which is a light amount of THC, that just kind of lifted for me. I was able to think clearer. And then another thing I noticed was my sensory overload lessened. I used to not be able to go for walks because like if a loud car went by or just, a dog or anything would just trigger me into stress. It was just, I was sensitive. And when I started using cannabis, I was able to go walk, start walking. I was able to start a, healthy athletic regimen, a daily thing I was never able to really do before, for a long period of time. And then just my internal dialogue seemed more positive. I used to have a lot of racing thoughts. I used to stress about everything. Everything just kind of really concerned me more than it needed to. And I noticed with cannabis use, like I was able to just cool all that off and tone it down some, and just, have more positive thoughts going on. And then I have a lot of muscle movement issues, and I just have like way more control over my muscle movements now. And then I deal with narcolepsy. So I have a lot of sleep cycle issues, and I've been able to work with my sleep cycle, and I have it under really, really good control right now with cannabis. I use CBN for nighttime. We have a CBN product with THC. That's just phenomenal. So I use that every night. And I also deal with vivid dreams and hallucinations from narcolepsy. It's called sleep paralysis. And I noticed with cannabis use, using the oils in my body daily and nightly, that my dreams just like melted away. So I don't always dream every night. I don't have those terror attacks in the middle of the night. And cannabis has just been a saving grace for me. I hope I answered.
Yeah, no, that was. I actually wanted to go off of that because when I was reading through the questions, I was like, oh, maybe my story might interest people. I went through a little bit of a medical issue a couple years myself, and I was prescribed so many pharmaceuticals and sleep pills, and like I have a picture of me like holding all of them. I had probably like 15 prescriptions at some point. And at that point, like I trusted my doctor. I was like, maybe one of these will work. And then I just started getting really hooked on the sleeping pills. Like I was like, oh, I love these. Like then it got to a point where I couldn't like sleep unless I had taken them. And then that was around the time I joined the cannabis industry, and I tried CBN. I've tried a bunch of different things in the the change was like, I can't even explain it. Like, it's night and day. I woke up feeling way better. I didn't feel super dependent. It was almost like a healthy placebo for me to resort to. So that's just kind of like why I've just encompassed cannabis, and I respect the plant so much because it's done so much for me, you know? So I always try to do like kind of a give back by doing like educational events, because you know, there's a lot of misinformation out there about a lot of things right now, and at least we can make sure cannabis isn't one of them. Okay, great. Well, thank you.
I wanted to just say something, Savannah, just of all those medicines that you were given, is the key with cannabis is you cannot get physically addicted and you cannot overdose. So all those drugs have those two major problems that people get into, to the point where we're giving people prescriptions for Narcan now if they're on certain amounts of drugs. So they have Narcan in their house, like regular, like everybody has it now, if they're on any of these drugs, because of the intensity that can happen, and you can overdose so easily. And then if you mix alcohol or other things in it, and if you use just cannabis by itself, like that is impossible. It just cannot happen. So I'd really like to point that out, that particular point out a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. I appreciate that. It became very apparent when I was taking it. I was like, ooh, like, I like this, you know, but you become so reliant on it. And I just felt so bad about just doing it all of the time. And then when I switched to cannabis, I was like, it was a different effect. Like you said, I'm calmer. Like I'm not overthinking about anything. My mind isn't racing. I can sleep peacefully. It's a godsend.
Well, it's changing your biochemistry too. So you are just kind of more calm, because we have an endocannabinoid system. So we are filling something that is in our body that we need. And so even just all through the day, so you are just more chill, you're more relaxed. You don't even have to dose it like medicine. So it's not like I take this and then I sleep. It's more like I take this when I take it throughout my life. Some people even don't even take it every day. They take it like every 3 days, depending on their metabolism. And it just fills a need in our bodies, versus that concept of I have a symptom and I take a medicine. It's more like I am deficient in something that my body's supposed to do and I'm replacing it. Totally different concept, and so much more natural and like on board with just taking care of your body instead of medicating your body.
Totally. And that's perfect segue into my next question. What really made you a believer in cannabis, and how do you use it to really help your patients with the different problems they might have that they come searching for help with?
Sure. I would say the number one thing most recently that has really prompted me to institute it, where I put myself out there that a lot of my colleagues will refer their people to me now, which is awesome. Little by little, is the opioid epidemic and the addiction with opioids and pain and chronic pain. So they just all of a sudden made all these rules and pulled opioids away from people without really a whole lot of very good alternatives to manage their pain. So that has been a big one. That doesn't really go with our, like what our title of our program is, but I would say chronic pain is one of the major ones that I use it for. Anxiety probably being very much up there, and other mental health issues, depression, sleep disorder, addiction, actually. So that I love to say that. People say it's like the what do they say? Like it's going to make you do other drugs. There's a thing they say.
Gateway drug.
Gateway drug. That's it. Sorry. Gateway drug. If anything, we actually use it to get people off a lot of medicines. There's very good research that has shown, especially, and I'm going to go back to my old people in the nursing homes, where they had, and just like Savannah's story, a long list of things that managed multiple problems, and cannabis is handling all of them. Mm-hmm. In varying, degrees, and really just so much less frequently. And the interesting thing I also like to point out is people say, well, we don't have research and we're not really sure how it works in people. We don't know that about anything. It's a joke. Like, we trial and error all the drugs. Like, ask anyone who has chronic illness. Let's try this. Let's try that. Oh, you have a side effect. Oh, that's bad. I've never seen that one. Oh, let's stop that one. Let's reduce. I mean, we do that all the time. So, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me how we talk about that and that we shouldn't be using it because we don't know every detail about it. We don't know every detail about anything with each individual patient. And if we just did individualized, tailored medicine to people and listened and tried different things with people and, you know, did it more so we geared it toward that individual, and someday DNA testing to see like how you react to cannabis.
Yeah.
There's so many cool new things. Like I'm like,
Yeah, like, get on it. Come on. Do you think that the medical community currently views cannabis as a viable treatment option?
Slowly but surely, it's getting there, very slowly. In the beginning, and especially with this opioid epidemic, so there are doctors out there in certain health systems that I won't say that that if you test positive for THC on your random drug screen that they do if they're going to prescribe you opioids, which by the way I don't do because I think it's a travesty and insulting, because I don't care what you do, I'm going to still treat your pain, but that's just my opinion on that matter. But if you tested positive for THC, they would not prescribe you your opioids at all, even if you are reducing the dose with the usage. And I'm like, I don't understand it. I mean, I know I'm way out there, but I'm like, even if you decide to do cocaine or you decide to do whatever, so then I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but I can't treat your pain because you wanted to party last weekend. Like that, it's not my role. It's not my role. That's what I look.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But the doctors are starting to realize they have to be open-minded to it because people are using it. And there is things that you have to talk to people about, like CBD, for example, very similar to an anti-inflammatory or like aspirin. So if you're having surgery or dental work, you really should probably hold your CBD product because you might bleed more. And blood pressure, like you got to watch your THC doses in people. And so like you have to watch things. And if the patients aren't telling the doctors, I'm using this, you are behind the 8 ball of not being able to really help people. So like, I'm just saying, open your eyes. You've got to be knowledgeable about it. I'm like, I did extra learning, so you can refer people to me and I'll counsel them. So I have like a whole sort of consultative part of my practice. I mean, I still do just regular medicine, but then I open myself to consults to my colleagues and I get a lot of referrals, and then I do a lot of speaking in the community. So we're getting there very slowly.
Slowly but surely. I know that when I've talked to my doctor, I always feel like smoking is almost put in the same category as like smoking cigarettes. Mm-hmm. So I get so nervous. I'm like, oh my God, no.
We at UC Davis, we just made a transition to put, they use the word marijuana, and I was like, wrong, you should put cannabis. But they put it where it's a medicine and not just a drug of abuse. So we did, in our electronic medical record, did that shift. And I was like, please, can we call it cannabis because it's more accurate? But they didn't. But it's a baby step, and I'm taking all the baby steps.
Steps are steps, you know? Like, we can't hate on them as long as they're happening. Okay, well, thank you for answering all of that. Gina, can you tell me a little bit more about the Plant Media Project? How is it helping with plant medicine education and advocacy?
Absolutely, but I just have to tell Dr. Karen, I love everything that you said, and I really, you know, being from a medical state, I mean, Pennsylvania, I believe, was the very first state in the nation that had opioid be one of the medical certifying conditions. Yet, if you're going through a process of trying to use cannabis to help you go through that process, you could get turned away from certain facilities and other help that you would need. So I found that so many people, they wanted to turn to it, but may have to walk away from different programs that, and sometimes if the court ordered those programs, it didn't give them the ability to be a part of it. And, you know, a big part of, because of me being in this medical state and not in an ability to just, you know, talk about cannabis so freely, is about talking about it in a very specific way for patients, and how can that help different people. And we have over 200,000 patients in Pennsylvania that are using cannabis, yet we have all very outdated laws, like a no tolerance DUI policy, that if someone's already a patient and gets pulled over, could be said that they're under the tolerance, and now all of a sudden they lose their license and they get into the whole system and they're a patient. Of course they're going to have it in their system. So there's just a lot of outdated laws that need to catch up with. everything that has already been put forth. So I think the PA is doing a great job. I think that we're in a good spot, but I'd love to see, especially talking to veterans, and I know today is Veterans Day, so it's a good time for us to talk about this. But I've lobbied for cannabis legalization in Pennsylvania, and this is something that really matters to me. And time again, I end up talking to veterans that they have many times limited funds and are having to use their own money when the VA could potentially help them in other capacities to be able to get their cannabis. So they have to try all these different products. They're not even really sure what they should use. So they try different things. They can't even figure it out. And now they're spending all this money. And I think about how once the legalization passes, how veterans will have better access to this plant medicine and what that means for so many people that suffer from PTSD and anxiety and depression that need it through their insurance. And that is just not possible right now. And so I get very passionate about this, and I founded Plant Media Project with my business partner, Elizabeth Sheldon. She lives in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'm in Pittsburgh. So Pennsylvania and Maryland, even though we're very close and in the same region, and both medical states have very different rules and laws around it. And it got us thinking about how different each state is. We're this United States of America, yet we're also still united only by our state and our local laws and rules. And we can see that with the decriminalization that happens in our local cities that's not even statewide, and how difficult it can be for a patient to drive from one state to another and potentially get incarcerated because they're carrying their medicine with them. And so through all of this, it really became this passion project of Elizabeth and I to say, you know what, we see that there's a lot of need to talk about this difference between the states and how we all are dealing with this differently. And we believe that everyone should have access to this medicine. Whether you're self-medicating or it's prescribed, we believe that this is something that is a basic human right for all people. And how can we utilize the skills that Elizabeth and I've had in media and marketing for all these years to help work towards ending this stigma, especially in a place like Pittsburgh, where, I talk to people about cannabis and they're like, you talk about weed, girl? We don't do that around these parts. It's still very, very outdated and looked upon as a drug, a street drug, even though there are hundreds of thousands of patients that are using this for medicine. So what I hope to do with Plant Media Project and our podcast is bring together people that are way smarter than me, that have way better degrees than me. I mean, like you, Dr. Karen, I want to hear it from the physicians. I want to hear it from the scientists. I want to hear it from all these people. This is what's going to help us on this stigma. Is not people that are just passionate about the plant. We need to hear it from those that are involved in the science behind it and can help us understand how we can integrate this into our other medicines. Because like you said, it can integrate with other medicines in different ways, whether it's CBD or THC products. In Pennsylvania, we do have a pharmacist at each of our dispensaries, and it's a requirement to see the pharmacist first before you can purchase your medicine, but you don't really need to see them again. And many people, if they don't feel a connection to that pharmacist, they don't ask those questions. And so we really want to figure out platforms like this. So thank you, HERBx, for putting this event on. It's really important for people to feel safe to get this information, especially older people that feel uncomfortable about posting about it or asking about it online or using social media to get the information. And God knows if you Google something, you're going to get all sorts of things. You don't know if it's fake or real news. So we want to try to help people navigate through the truth and figure out how they can get to the people that can give them the information that matter most. And we're learning as we go too. And we just want to try to pull together the best people that we can, because we feel that only through education is what's going to open up the minds of more people. And through that, we're going to be able to have this conversation with so many different people of various different age groups, because we want everybody to love this plant. And so that's what we're hoping to do it. So we have the podcast. It's called The Vine, Plant Media Project Podcast, available wherever podcasts are found. And we hope that you'll tune in, and it's our way to really just bring these folks to the forefront and giving them a platform to tell all of the amazing things that they have to talk about, because they're the experts. We just ask really good questions, and we're hoping that people will tune in and use this as a way to hopefully get educated and not feel like they have to tell anybody that they're kind of curious. They just have to tune in and get a little bit educated by people that know more about the topic.
And I think that's so great, because naturally people are so curious. Like, I can't even tell you how many people hit me up each day and just asking me questions, just general questions. And it's, for us, I feel like it's second nature. Like, right, we know pretty much everything to an extent about it, like foundational. And so when people ask me, I'm like, wait, how do you not? Oh, wait. And it's just so many people are just, they're so eager to learn more. And that's kind of one of the reasons why HERBx started, was because there were just so many questions that were unanswered. Like, no one was answering them. And there just needed to be a platform where people just had an open discussion and talked about it. Like, I consider you all friends. So I think it's really cool to be able to sit on here with friends and just have an open conversation, and also be able to educate, the general public or people that are interested about learning about it. And don't worry, like, you don't have to go to a dispensary to learn about it. Like, you can just sit on your computer and you can learn from us, and that, I think that's kind of the great thing about the kind of digital era right now that's happening. Everything's a little bit more accessible. I did get a question for Gina. Who do you market your podcast to, and where?
So we are marketing it to everyone. We hope that, well, actually it's over 18 plus, because there is, an F-bomb that might get dropped by someone, and we're trying to make sure it's an adult podcast by the nature of what we're talking about. But we're 12 episodes in, so we're very new. I've talked to podcasters that have hundreds of episodes, so we're very new to this, but we're really looking for everyone from within the industry, and also those that are just curious about the industry. And you could tell with certain different guests that we've had on the show that some of it are going to be a little bit more 101 type introductory conversations, and others that are a little bit more in tune to the industry. But what we're trying to ask is also, we want to know about the people behind it. And, I think that there's always an interesting story about how people found their way here, and whether that be from them being a mother that had a child that needed it, or, them just personally having a journey that brought them to it. We always want to start with that question, because we feel that when people can understand how people came from all different walks of life, and they found that this plant mattered to them, and that they're so passionate about it that they would change their business to be about it, they would move their family to help their child to get this medicine, all these different stories, it really helps tell the power of why we're all doing this. Even if the money wasn't in it right away, there was something deeper. So I would say that we're definitely trying to get that adult audience, and we're right now just marketing it all through organically, and through just the partners and the nonprofits that we have that we're bringing on are being really kind to us and helping share it. But we're new, and we know that we're new, and we want to help as many people as we can. So if you have somebody that that you think would be a good fit to be a part of the podcast, you can certainly go to our website, plantmediaproject.com, and shoot us a message, because we really want to find a very wide variety of people that we can really bring to the forefront and help shine their stories and bring into to the limelight.
That's awesome. I think what's been cool about the industry is everyone kind of has a seat at the table. Like, no one's really left out. It touches on kind of every lifestyle that someone has, which is what I've loved so much about it. I couldn't imagine I'd be doing what I'm doing, and I kind of owe it all to this plant, which is so crazy, but it's so awesome too. Has your podcast touched at all on kind of the pandemic and how kind of what we're talking about yet?
Yeah, almost every episode at one point or another has touched on it. And I would say the theme throughout is that cannabis is essential, right? So it's really hard if during a pandemic, especially in medical states, that our states say cannabis is essential, right up there with, other things. So now it's kind of hard in my mind to go back on that, right? So if everybody that we're talking about, no matter where they live in the country, is coming from that place where this plant is something that can help everyone, I feel like that's the one thing I'm taking away from all these different conversations. I mean, they're coming from all different places, but they're all saying that we really believe that cannabis is essential, and that this is where we need to focus our efforts, is that after this pandemic, that we make sure that it continues to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think every state's kind of doing their due diligence to kind of move forward with it. I mean, we're so close, we're so close, but still so far, I feel like. But thank you for all of that. Jennifer, can you hear me? Okay, but I think you're muted. I'm gonna unmute you. I think. Oh,
Can you hear me
perfect.
now?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'm just losing your audio in and out, but I'm getting pieces and I'm holding on.
Okay, perfect. Well, we can hear you perfectly.
Good.
So that's all that matters. What recommendations do you have for those looking to use cannabis to treat the effects of the pandemic, and what products do you recommend?
So a lot of beginners to cannabis like our CBD rich ratios with just a hint of THC, because they don't really want to feel a strong shift and can go on about their day. Those that are more experienced with cannabis enjoy our THC rich ratios. And those just kind of help them get to the headspace or the body space that they need to get to. But whether you're new or novice to cannabis, be open to trying different ratios. And I'm all for journaling your findings. It's not a one size fits all. So there is some exploring involved to find your perfect dose for cannabis. And I would recommend definitely that people get active. Experiencing different sensory experiences right now will kind of help you, because we're all staying home so much that I find when I go out, like it's really stimulating for me. So I'm trying to manage that myself a little bit. I really recommend people stay connected with social interactions being reduced. One can feel pretty lonely and isolated right now, as we've all been discussing. And practice mindfulness right now. Get in touch with yourself on a deeper level, maybe spiritually. Find a church or a group. And definitely, like, if you're struggling, like, seek help, reach out, talk to people. As far as like a product, for ours that we carry, I think our 20-to-1 ratio is just a beautiful ratio. It's mostly CBD with just a little bit of THC. And it's just enough. Like, I like to start my day with it. It's just enough to like lift your mood. It doesn't give you a head shift. Every once in a while I can feel it kind of kick in. I'm like, ooh, there's my endocannabinoid system. So yeah, it's just a real nice product. A lot of people will come to me and say, I want something, but I don't want to feel high. And I'm like, yeah, that's our 20-to-1. It's just perfect. And then people don't even realize it's helping them, maybe with, inflammation, a little bit aches and pain, their mood, anxieties. And it's something that I really feel like people have to have. Like, I love the oils. I think it's really great to have it in your body on a daily basis. It's like your vitamin. It's a wellness product. So I'm all for daily use of the cannabis oils to just kind of help everything. It takes time, for you to see changes. Like with CBD, like our 20-to-1, you're not going to, have something happen and be like, oh, I didn't feel that right away. It's more like, you have a day and it goes on and you think back and you're like, you know what? I kind of handled everything really well today. So it's kind of more of like that. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend our 20-to-1.
Awesome. Thank you. I think it's a good experiment too, because the industry is coming out with so many different like SKUs, right? So you have like, I think there's one that's like in a whiskey like bottle. So it's like, it looks like it's alcohol. Like it's weird. It's just so crazy. I'm like, there's beverages now, like there's hot chocolate. Like, what is going on? This is awesome. Yeah. What a time to be alive, And okay, great. Well, Dr. Mo, this question is for you. I know that we touched a little bit earlier about kind of talking to your doctor and like being honest and saying like, yes, I smoke, I do this. What advice do you have for someone that wants to start their health provider about possibly using cannabis as a medicine?
I mean, I think that's a very charged and difficult question to answer, because there really aren't a whole lot of physicians that are yet open or understanding enough to be able to make recommendations. in my local community, I mean, I'm pretty busy with a lot of people coming to me because there aren't a lot of doctors consulting. When California was just a medical state, like Pennsylvania, up till a couple years ago when Prop 64 passed, it was interesting because there were sort of these, I'm going to be careful how I say this, sort of more like doc in the boxes that you could get a recommendation from. They weren't really your doctor. So, and I mean, I think, and I'll be honest with you, I got my medical recommendation through one of those. And I mean, I also did it to kind of because I was nosy and I wanted to see what they looked like and I wanted to see what they asked and what they went through. So it was research. It was not for me. But when I got my medical letter, it was an online thing and I spoke to them very briefly. Then they provided me with a letter and it was a little interesting and for me as a physician, a little scary in just like, because they didn't really ask me a whole lot about all my other health issues. Now, I don't have a lot of health issues, so maybe that's what came into play. So if like an elderly person on a long list of medicines, maybe they would have been more in depth. And I'm not sure that those people were doing that yet. So my hope is that we expand the education. So what's happening now, slowly but surely, is at like Davis Med School. I teach support. There's a woman who teaches the course. She's actually an anesthesiologist and does a cannabis class, and I go and do one of the sessions with the students. I've done it 2 years now, so we're coming up into our 3rd year of that, which is super exciting because when I started talking about this, only the University of Vermont had a course at all. So it's really growing. And if we can, and I think I just saw one of our mutual friends who is doing classes like at a community college. And I honestly think like if we could start having like an entire cannabis section at community college where you learn either the marketing, the growing, the manufacturing, the science, the medical, and then people who are looking for jobs. There's so many jobs in the industry. So there's so many different ways that you can get into it. And I really think it's going to be a booming thing. As far as there are very small starting, there's something called the Society of Cannabis Clinicians that I'm a part of. And that's like a website that you can go on and put like your zip code. But it's all like you have to sign up for it and I have to pay to be a member of it. So like there could be cannabis friendly doctor out there, but they're not to be a part of that. I mean, I did that just because I wanted to get my name out there. And I hadn't been doing it, even though I'd been doing cannabis medicine for 10 years. Like I only recently got myself on that. And it's interesting. That's what we need. I mean, we need more education. We need the new docs coming up, learning more about it. And just educating the physicians so they feel comfortable counseling. Because as you said, and doctors are pretty scared about talking about it because it has been such a stigma and always like a drug of abuse for so long, that there's that aspect, and safety. So we really have to make sure, I believe in the state of California, our safety is amazing. So like if you go to a licensed cannabis dispensary and purchase a product, you know that it's been very well tested. In fact, in my opinion, tested more than it even probably has to be. Because, I mean, I think that's led to cost issues and access to people because, I mean, obviously everything that has to happen costs money and then people to be able to sell it. And I'm sure Jennifer could speak to this you have to pay to get everything tested. So to get everything tested costs money. So that has to somehow go somewhere. Someone has to pay for that. And then they tax the hell out of it. So heck out of it. And that is like mind blowing too. So it ends up being like really frustrating for access. And Gina spoke of that earlier. And that's a frustrating thing for me is that we really need to get, like, there's so many people that need it, and it's a cost issue. So they are turning to the unregulated market. That's how we talk about it now. Like, it's the word we use. And yeah, so they're just still buying it on the street, and that's still like pretty active. But I do also think that even there, like, stuff's safer than it probably was, because people are trying to get into the industry. So even if they haven't quite, and it's money, it's all money. Yes, welcome to the United States of America. You have cash, and you know, get in. And I just think even people trying to get into the industry, it's frustrating. You know, I'm sorry, I went totally off topic from what you asked.
No, I'm all for it. I'm like, wait, tell me more, tell me more. Someone did ask a question about the classes you were speaking about. Should only doctors be able to teach those courses, those like college courses, or lead the discussions? Or should it be, I mean, someone else doing it, maybe like an industry advocate or?
Sure. I mean, I can speak to people who I know in my circles who I think, I mean, like Kimberly Cargile should like teach everything to everybody. Sorry, can I call her out?
Oh my God. All good, I mean, things, Kimberly.
She has taught me so much just about, and just back to like Jennifer speaking about being mindful. Like, she has taught me, like, you also have to like go a little bit. Board is like, no, that's not the cannabis way. Like, we're nice to each other, and we're kind, and we're safe, and we really look out for each other. And I mean, to me, there's so many people out there that could teach these classes when we're talking at that community college level. As physicians are starting to get more knowledgeable about its medicinal effects, obviously in medical schools, I think doctors should be teaching medical students about it, because then you start to get into the whole physiology, pharmacology, you know, different things like that, that is pretty complex. Like, it took me a long time to get to that place of knowledge. But I'll tell you, even when I write a letter of recommendation, I usually never very specific thing that I tell people to get. I sort of, because the big thing is when they go to a dispensary, I don't know exactly what is going to be on the shelf for them to purchase at that moment. And I say, the people that are there know their products, and they've been listening to the patients that come and go. And like Jennifer was talking about, trying different things and seeing how they work for you. And I mean, that's how I mean, being over 25 years in practice, like, I know nuances of blood pressure medicines because I listen to patients, versus when I was fresh out, I didn't know as much. But the bud tenders who have been doing this for a long time, especially in California, and especially some of the ones in Northern California that I send people specifically to. So I don't necessarily send them to a specific product, but I send them to specific locations, because I trust their bud tenders.
I always send people to ATA. That's typically where I send them in Sacramento. They're very thorough with when they're speaking with you. I tried it out. I went in, I was going to see Kimberly, and then so I was waiting. I was like, oh, I'll just go in. And then I went in, everyone had like scrubs on. I was like, oh wow, this like makes me feel so comfortable. It was like one of my first or like second experiences with it. When I first started, I was like, wow, this is super awesome. Like, this is really cool.
We should say ATA is a therapeutic alternative.
Yeah, a therapeutic alternative, sorry. Awesome. Jennifer, I actually have one question for you from someone. Jennifer, I'm in Florida. Can I buy your products here? And please repeat the products you recommended earlier.
Okay, so to repeat the product I recommended, it was our Proof 20-to-1 tincture or capsules. Living in Florida, we can't cross state lines with cannabis. We can't ship it. We can't drive it across state lines. So unfortunately, unless you can come visit California, we can't get our products to you out of the state of California. But hopefully sooner or later, we'll get some laws changed and we'll be able to cross over into other markets and other states soon, hopefully. But thank you for the question.
I think it's coming soon.
I hope it's coming soon, because the unfortunate thing is you can purchase all kinds of different products online through your friends and things like that that is not regulated product. It's not good product. I'm really scared about hemp-based CBD products that are all over the place, because people are getting a bad experience of the industry and the products, and like either they don't help them because they don't have the right amount of dosage in them that they say, because there's no third party regulating them. So I mean, back to my statement, if it's from a dispensary in California or a dispensary in any of the states that have regulations, you know what you're getting, you know it's safe, and you know it has in it what it says it has in it. And so unfortunately, you're going to hear from states where they don't have it, and they're going online, and Amazon can sell you this CBD tincture, and it sounds the same, but it's not the same.
I think one good thing to touch on that I found very surprising when I first learned it, maybe the difference between, if you could explain the difference between hemp and cannabis. I think that's kind of something that gets really, there's a blurred line with it that some people don't understand. So any of you could talk about it, or we all could just maybe explain that for the viewers so that they can kind of understand what you mean.
Do you want me to talk? Okay. So hemp originally came about, I mean, it's really fabulous to make like bags and ropes and clothes and things like that. So if you think of the plant itself, it makes a lot of plant and not very much medicine, versus a cannabis plant that has a lot of flower and lovely, beautiful things. Like that's actually one of my most, I have photos all over of beautiful flower because it's so pretty. And that's where you get the medicine. So if you think about, there's an issue that big plant, little medicine, it's something called bioaccumulation. So if there's pesticides, heavy metals, fungi, different things that are in your soil and things like that, and you have to take this much plant to get this much medicine, you're more apt to get some of those things in it that are bad, that you wouldn't want in your medicine. The other piece of it is, I mean, just like I said, it's not a regulated industry. So that just is a fact, that it's just not. So people, I do think that there are probably companies out there that go about their business and get third party tested and have certificates and things like that, but they don't have to. And so there's a lot of stuff out there like that gets mucked up. So I guess that's probably the two main things of that you want in the product, what it says it has in it, and you don't want things in it that you don't want in it. And it's just easier in a cannabis plant. I mean, it's just botanically, it's just how, I mean, if you look at them, I wish I had pictures.
No, yeah, no, thank you for explaining that. I just kind of, sometimes I feel like there's like a really, like I said, blurred line of like what the difference is, because people are like, wait, they see a cannabis leaf and they're like, oh, this is all the same. It's so different. It really is. So thank you for speaking on that. My last question is for Miss Gina. What do you see as the largest obstacle to overcome in order to end stigma surrounding cannabis as medicine?
Great question, by the way. I'm going to start with something really basic like language. You know, when we still refer to it as marijuana, it still sets us back with the ways that it could be associated with reefer madness. And when we start changing language about the things that we talk about, it can make a difference in how other people react to it. We see this in really, you know, even in marginalized groups, right? If you're called something and you don't want to be called that, you start calling yourself it. So now medical marijuana is what we have in Pennsylvania. I don't want it to be called medical marijuana. I wish it could be called medical cannabis, but there's this idea that people don't know what cannabis is. And so they didn't want to put something on the market that could be misunderstood by people. And so more people understood marijuana to be this drug. And so it was easier to call it that. So even in the way that we market ourselves, if you're a cannabis company in Pennsylvania and you want to run an ad in a magazine, you have to say medical marijuana. It has to be approved by our Department of Health. And there's all these rules and regulations. So I think about how we can just start with the way that we talk about the plant. And there's been so many different ways that we've talked about it tonight in such a positive way that I think that all the listeners have been able to hear that, there's a really positive way that we can talk about this as plant medicine and that it can matter. But I just have to, while I have a little minute, just to talk a little bit about the anonymous attendee that talked about the disproportionate amount of white people in this industry. And as we look on this panel with a lot of females, which is one good thing, but we know that this is a problem. And the question in the chat was about how it's just way too expensive for people of color to get involved in this. And right now, while there's still so many people of color incarcerated over this plant, while a lot of white people are making money off of it, I stand by organizations like Last Prisoner Project that are raising awareness about how we need to support these folks that are literally sitting in jail over the same exact plant that other people are making lots of money over. So I 100% appreciate that question and feel that it also, in order for us to end the stigma, we need to talk about this plant to all people and not just to a segmented group. And we need to realize that this war on drugs has failed us and that we need to reconsider it. And then we need to think about how that could really impact our lives in a positive way. And we need to think about it for all people. And we first need to ensure that cannabis is decriminalized across the nation and that people that were wrongfully and unjustly incarcerated over this are immediately let out of jail. And I'll tell you right now, in the state of Pennsylvania, you can't even get into our program if you had a previous offense to this. So you could have been in the industry trying to help people and get this plant out to people, and now you're sitting in jail, and now there's no chance that you're going to be able to be a part of it. So we have some bills that are in Pennsylvania right now that talk specifically to people of color that were harmed by the war on drugs, that they would have an opportunity to get involved in the industry should Pennsylvania go legalized. With a bill like this, there might even be grant money to help those people get involved in the industry. We have, all these micro brews. Well, let's start having some micro license for people that can afford it and not make this be a game where only the big, massive companies can afford to be in the industry. And I really feel that if we make a voice about that and talk about how cannabis can be inclusive for everyone, that it's going to make this conversation bigger. Because when we only talk about it in such a way where only, rich white men are going to benefit, it's really not including our entire country. So I appreciate that question, whoever asked it. And I want to make sure that I raise awareness about that, because it wasn't necessarily, to me, I think the language and the way we talk about it and how we work together as a culture to change is important. But we can't forget that war on drugs failed us and how we have to work together right now to figure out how we can fix that. And if we think about it as something that is inclusive for everyone, that's going to be how we're going to move our country forward and how we're going to get this plant legalized across the country.
No, I'm really happy you brought that up. Actually, I was going to right after you did, and I was like, oh, sweet, okay. It kind of opens up the discussion for it, because California has a lot of social equity programs, but you don't really see them working. I know LA's has failed, Long Beach's has failed, Oakland has probably the best one so far, I'd say. And when I even came to Long Beach, I don't mind calling on this to be they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing with the money. So they had all this money for these applicants, and I'm talking to the applicants because I'm trying to help them out and start it up down here. And they're like, no one from the city's reached out to us. We don't even know what's going on with our application. And I'm like, what is going on? You guys have the money. So where is it? And so that's why there are social equity programs that are, starting up and happening, but you have people like me and a few of my friends that are on right now that are doing, the social equity programs in Sacramento, and they have to come in and be like, hey, you guys aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing with this money. It's supposed to be helping people that were wrongfully incarcerated for people that are making a ton of money off of it now. And it's absolutely ridiculous. So I'm really happy we got to touch on that. That's always, I want to do a separate one on kind of social equity programs. And I think it'd be interesting to see kind of how different states are doing, because I think Massachusetts has a really good program from what I've heard on a few podcasts. I'm not totally familiar with it, but I think it's definitely a conversation worth having, in the future and, right now, obviously. So I'm really happy that got brought up, and thank you for asking that question, whoever asked it. But let me see if there's any more Q&A that's pretty much questions I had for you guys. Let's see. There was a bunch earlier, and I was like trying to ask you guys when you were talking, and then I like lost some of them. Okay, Dr. Mo, where would you send patients to get a medical card?
So that's an interesting question. So the way it stands currently in the state of California, and I really can only speak to the state of California because, like was said earlier, the laws are very different from state to state. So I only know what I need to do here. And even on an even smaller level, I only know like what's happening in Yolo County because I actually called the woman because I would get these big old packets to fill out to make cards. And I spoke to the woman, and since Prop 64 passed, she's like, nobody comes for a card anymore. But there are, in the state of California, different things where you can be a medical patient and have a letter that's a recommendation. And again, that's another reason why my personal patients I send to particular dispensaries, because then they go, oh, you're Dr. Mo's patient, and they know me there. So like it works better. Obviously, that's not going to work for everybody. But so a letter for the most part works. I just wrote my letter with language that says the law and all that. In the state of California, if you have a medical recommendation, when you go to a dispensary, you can purchase more product at any given time, which is almost funny because you can pretty much go every day and like each transaction. So, I mean, it's better because you only have to go once. And with COVID, it's important that you don't go too many times. So that is something that I think is important. So I do give people medical letters, and it reduces one of the taxes in California. So those are two reasons to have a recommendation. However, as it stands in California right now, anybody can walk into a dispensary and say, hey, I'm not sleeping and I want to try something for sleep. And they can talk to them about it and they can get a product. So I prefer people to be able to talk to physicians. But I really also think that compared to most physicians, most people that are counseling at the dispensaries are going to know a whole lot more than most physicians, including myself. I mean, I get touted as the expert, and I'm not. I mean, I learn something every day. I learn from my patients. I want to help people through this. I learn from my patients as much as they learn from me. So it's an exchange of information. Things like this, I've learned things already today that are cool. And it has to be like that. And it really, again, I'm going to go back to the individualizing it per person. So it's trial and error. It's whoever said keep the notebook, that's amazing advice, because that is really the only way you're going to be able to even go back to the dispensary and get the product that you want, because you wrote down like, that gave me this, that helped me with this, that didn't make me feel sleepy and when I woke up in the morning, and it didn't give me a lingering hangover effect, or different side effects that people get. So writing all that down and being sort of methodical about the different products that you try and trying different things. You have to kind of be a little bit more open to it. And then also, again, getting rid of the concept that it's like, I have a symptom and this is a medicine. I love the concept more that it's like a wellness product. If I could go back, I would rather it were regulated like a food product than a medicine product, because it really is, in my opinion, more like that. Like, so just would say all the different pieces of it, like a tomato. So I'm in Davis. I think of heirloom tomatoes. I always compare that to cannabis. Cannabis is way more like a tomato than it is like heroin. Which is, what I mean, they're not the same at all. So if we could go back, and it's something that you can take like every day. It's a thing that you can take more like a vitamin, or more like you eat a salad, than that it's, I have a symptom and I take a pill for it.
No, I totally, I can't believe it's a Schedule 1 drug. I'm like, who decided this? Like, that's insane to me.
I mean, so not that I want to get political, but we can't help it. I mean, bad politicians have been out there doing things with money makers having their hands in their pockets to get policies changed, and that's what happened. And honestly, if we want to go talk about hemp, it had to do with the hemp industry and people wanting to sell plastics. So they wanted to wipe out hemp, which then cannabis kind of got thrown in the trash with that. And that's, if you read the history, it's mind boggling. And then of course, racism. So we did touch on that as well, but it completely, like, even calling it marijuana is racist. So I don't use that term other than when I'm talking, like saying it's a racist term. And like the people that are serving time for its use, I mean, it's all disgusting and political. And I have every time I give my talks, my first quote is a quote from Henry Anslinger, who is the chair of what is now the DEA, saying it's the Black people and the jazz musicians trying to sleep with our white women. I mean, it was a statement that he made before a House committee. And I mean, I use that quote because I'm like, this is what we were up against. This is what happened. And then there's a quote actually from someone that worked for Nixon, because Nixon actually hired someone to do a study to show that cannabis was actually bad, except that's not what they found. They found it was totally safe and wonderful, and he squashed the study. And then they just affiliated the anti-war movement with cannabis, and we're like, these are people trying to push us in this weird direction. Just like today. So it's all manipulative. Blah.
How dare we care about each other, love one another, and care less about things, and care about our bodies more, and want to help our neighbors more. It's like, keep telling me all these negative things. It's when you really rewind. And I always tell people, if you want to care about cannabis and you really want to get into it, whether you're an advocate or you're just curious about it, looking at the history and seeing how we got here helps us realize why this stigma exists. And when you can put that in perspective, you can start seeing how the information that's fed to you, let's just talk for 1 second about how there's the same thing on the local news every year around Halloween, where suddenly edibles is being given to children at Halloween. No one's given their expensive ass edibles to kids. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, but it's the same news article. They use a Skittles container that says medicated on it. It's like the same BS thing year after year. And it's like, we have to become smarter as consumers. And if we're taking in all this information, but we know better. If you hear that same thing over and over again, and you haven't really heard a case of anything ever happening about it. It's just this propaganda that still exists in the media, and we have to be smarter to say to ourselves, no, that's really not true, and speak up about it. I'm like the warrior on all the local news. This is not true, and sending like links to like real things or messaging the people that did the article, being like, do you realize that I can give you some information and put you in touch with a doctor that completely proves that what you said was false? You become this champion for the plant in such a way where now you're combating all this fake news around it. And I really feel that we have to do that. We have to really stand up to it, because when you believe in it and you know that it's something that matters, there's a lot of just still misinformation, and it's all, most of it that I see, especially in a medical state, it's just propaganda. They're just trying to scare you away from using the plant and keeping you on potentially other medications. And I'm not saying you have to get off all medications, but sometimes the medications you're on cause side effects that cannabis can help. So think about it and how it can help us feel better with our lives and get through our day in a better way. I might be stuck in this house, but at least I know I can breathe and I can have a better day each day, knowing that I'm connected to my heart, my center. We talked about mindfulness. It helps us get through the day a lot better. It's certainly not the answer to everything, but at least it's a way to help us get by day.
Can I speak to one quick thing that segues onto what Gina was saying for our future, to watch out for propaganda? Because big pharma is going to be pissed and want to take cannabis and put it in pills and sell it and take it over, and big industry. Whole plant medicine is something that we all need to really hold on to, and how it works as with all the cannabinoids and the terpenes and the different aspects of it and how growing it as a plant versus shoving it in to manufactured pills. And I'm scared because I do believe when we get to federal legalization, I mean, but amongst people that I know, we have these discussions. Like, if it goes this way, now who's going to oversee it and who's going to regulate it? How is it going to change? And how are they going to want to take away your backyard plants? And because they're going to be pissed because they're not making money off this. And that it's something that we all have to keep talking about, because we'll lose it in the propaganda, like what happened back when.
Mm-hmm. And I think just like working in marketing and PR, just basically that's my trade. That's what I do for a living. It's incredible that consumers don't realize how much power they really have. Like, you can, like, I've seen it happen. I literally had to change the packaging on a product. Consumers did not like it. And it's just, I don't think even sometimes I realized as a consumer how much power I did have. And there's always power in numbers, but generalizing as a group, you can get a lot done. And I think that as the cannabis industry, you know, grows and people become more educated in it, we kind of become one voice. And I'm hoping, like you mentioned, legalization does come around and big pharma comes in with all their money, people really hold their ground, and we kind of keep the same culture and community we've spent so long building and almost mending from the war on drugs. So that's just my take on the whole situation.
I always say at the end of all my talks, I say, you are all now my soldiers. Go back to your doctors and tell them to learn about the plant.
No. And it's, if so many people are asking the doctors, they're eventually at some point going to be like, I need to learn about this. Like, I mean, I have to. Like, I'm not super familiar on like the cultivation side of things, but I had been in the industry for quite a while, and I was like, I need to learn more about this. This is, you know, that's something important I need to know if I'm going to be speaking to people about it. I wanted to thank you all again for being on the panel. I have gotten a lot of questions in the Q&A about how people can contact each of you. If you feel comfortable giving out information, feel free to do that. If not, that's totally fine too. But just maybe take a few seconds, say goodbye, give people a little bit of information about yourselves and how to contact you.
Were you talking to me?
Anyone? Yeah, all of you guys. Yeah.
Okay, I heard a little bit of what you had asked. Can you briefly ask again? Hopefully I can hear you.
Yeah, no, totally. People have been messaging and they want to connect with each of you or know how to follow you. If you guys want to give out your information, how people can reach out to you, maybe learn more about what you're doing, feel free to do that. If you don't feel comfortable giving your information, you totally don't have to.
Okay, I'll jump in real quick since I heard a little bit of what you were asking. So on social media, you can find Proof at proofextracts.com. That's their website. For me, I'm on social media as Jenny Rae, Jenerae, and I share everything I do with Proof. Proof is also on social media, Instagram as proof.wellness. And we're on Facebook. Just reach out and definitely, hopefully give me a follow. I love to share what I'm doing in the industry. I love to share new products. I'm just all about networking with people, hitting the ground, learning what, like today I was with veterans. I met over 50 individual veterans today, and Proof donated product through a dispensary. So I spent the whole morning, which I'm a little pink because I'm a little sunburned, but I spent the whole morning just, you know, spending time with veterans. I love doing that. Sometimes I feel a little bit like the Robin Hood of cannabis. I hit the streets, you know, I'll give out, you know, a few samples here and there that are legally able to. And I just really enjoy networking with people, getting to meet them, because everyone in this industry has a story. And when I started realizing that, I was like, wow. And then I found my story, and I've been able to use that to help other people. And I just try to keep that going. I call it the Proof Love. So come on in and get some Proof Love. Give us a follow.
Gina, so just a disclaimer, all of their social media handles are on our Instagram at the HERBx. So you'll be able to find that if you can't hear clearly on here or whatever is happening or you missed it. So just so you guys know, you can find all of their information on our Instagram. But you guys can go ahead and share, like, maybe if you want to say, like, reach out to you in a different way, you know?
Oh yeah, no, I just want to thank you again for offering this opportunity for us to come together in a capacity that's free for people to attend so that they can get this education. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. And if you are interested in learning more about Plant Media Project, you can visit us online at plantmediaproject.com. Our podcast is called The Vine, a Plant Media Project podcast, and you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and all the other podcast platforms. So just thank you both to Dr. Mo and Jennifer and to the HERBx. I mean, this has been a really awesome opportunity to be able to talk and have some real honest conversations about how cannabis can really affect our lives. So I just want to thank all of you for your attention and for tuning in with us tonight.
So I don't have like a platform or a professional site or anything. So I'm just me, and I practice medicine in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm a mom of bipedal and quadrupedal people and animals. So I'm kind of busy. I'm more than happy to give out my email with the little asterisk that I'm not necessarily answering you like in real time really quickly, just because I have a lot going on. I usually will say, I got your message, I'll look into it more. I do like talking to people. I just feel so strongly about this that I do want to get the word out. So I do give out my personal email. So I don't know if you want to put that on the site, or I can type it into the chat, or it's long. So
I think the chat stays up for a little bit. So yeah, if you want to put it in the chat, maybe everyone can check
I can do that.
Okay.
Probably just because I mean, to say it and have people are like, ha, 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 and then they're trying to write it down and stuff. I am just Ms. Kmo on Instagram, but it's just my personal Instagram. It's not like I'm a thing. I'm just me. In fact, my disclaimer at the beginning of everything is I'm not representing UC Davis Health. I'm just me.
Well, thank you guys all again. I'm super blessed to have gotten to sit here and chat with all of you. Usually, I think people can get really nervous when I have to like be in front of cameras and stuff. I just don't like it. And so whenever I get a group of people that I'm really comfortable around, which I definitely was on here, you can always tell. It definitely felt like a free-flowing conversation with friends, which is the best conversations you can have. So thank you all again for being so open-minded and doing your due diligence in the industry to really break the stigma and, you know, help people where you can, because this is the type of people we need to change things, you know? So again, thank you for your time. I know you are all super busy. I'm hoping I get to connect with you all very soon. Maybe I could come out to Pennsylvania. That'd be super fun. I've never been there, but now I have a friend there. So look at that.
Yeah, Pennsylvania.
It's cold now, you know, you in California, I want to come visit you. You can wait for maybe it warms up a little bit.
Actually, yeah, come here. That might be better.
I feel like I'm going to come visit you probably before, but you know, we do have a beautiful city, and once it gets warm, you know, you come see our three rivers and see
summertime. I'm thinking summertime. Well, thank you all again. Thank you everyone who tuned in. If you have any questions for me and any of the panelists, feel free to reach out on Instagram. I'm very responsive. But I hope you all enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you guys again. Thank you again to Proof Extracts.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's not possible without you guys, so thank you very much. And enjoy the rest of your evening. God, I can't talk. Okay.
Thank you. So great meeting all of you.
Great meeting
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thank you. Have a great night.